Have you ever wondered what might happen if you found yourself trapped in a place that's usually bustling with life, but suddenly empty and dark? Let me tell you a story about how an ordinary evening at the mall turned into an extraordinary adventure for two strangers. This is the tale of Blackout hit the mall, where an unexpected power outage created the perfect conditions for connection, vulnerability, and romance. Picture this: Westfield Plaza, a sprawling three-story shopping center with gleaming floors, bright storefronts, and the constant hum of activity. During business hours, it's a place where hundreds of people move through their day, shopping, eating, working, all passing each other without really seeing one another. The mall has that distinct smell, a mixture of pretzel stands, perfume samples, and cleaning products, that anyone who spent time in these commercial cathedrals would instantly recognize. On this particular Friday evening in late autumn, the mall was beginning to wind down. Store employees were counting their registers, shoppers were making their final purchases, and the overhead announcements reminded everyone that closing time was approaching. Among those still in the mall were Alex and Jamie, two people who had never met, but whose lives were about to become intertwined in ways neither could have imagined. Alex worked at Bookmark, a small independent bookstore tucked away in a quiet corner of the mall's second floor. At 25, he was an aspiring artist who took the part-time job to pay bills while pursuing his passion for painting. Quiet and introspective, Alex often found himself observing others rather than engaging, creating stories in his mind about the strangers who browsed the shelves. He had a habit of pushing his wire-rimmed glasses up his nose when he was nervous, which happened frequently in social situations. His dark hair often fell across his forehead, and he had a small tattoo of a paintbrush on his wrist, a reminder of the promise he'd made to himself never to give up on his art. Jamie, on the other hand, was shopping for a birthday gift for his younger sister. At 27, he exuded confidence and charm that drew people to him naturally. A graduate student in environmental science, Jamie balanced his academic pursuits with an active social life. His easy laugh and genuine interest in others made him popular, though few people knew about his occasional bouts of insecurity. With tousled sandy hair and warm brown eyes, Jamie had a presence that filled a room, or in this case, a bookstore. As the announcement for the mall's closing echoed through the corridors, Alex was helping Jamie find the perfect young adult novel for his sister. Their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by Jamie's laughter at Alex's dry wit and Alex's subtle blush whenever Jamie's hand brushed against his while reaching for a book. There was an undeniable spark between them, but neither had worked up the courage to acknowledge it directly. Then it happened. Without warning, the lights flickered once, twice, and then plunged the entire mall into darkness. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by distant exclamations of surprise. In that moment of confusion, the automated security system malfunctioned. Throughout the mall, heavy metal shutters designed to protect storefronts during emergencies began to descend with mechanical precision. Before Alex and Jamie could react, they heard the ominous sound of the bookstore's security shutter rolling down, sealing them inside as the emergency generators failed to kick in. "What's happening?" Alex's voice was tight with anxiety, his hand instinctively reaching for his phone to activate its flashlight. "Must be a power outage," Jamie replied, surprisingly calm. The blue-white glow from his phone illuminated his face, revealing an unexpected smile. "Looks like we're stuck here for a while." Alex's heart raced as the implications set in. They were trapped in the bookstore, possibly the entire mall, after hours. No lights, no way to contact security, and no immediate escape. For someone who preferred quiet evenings at home with a sketchpad, this was the stuff of nightmares. Yet Jamie's evident excitement was somehow infectious. "Should we try to call security or something?" Alex asked, already scrolling through his contacts for the mall management number he had saved. Jamie shrugged. "We could, but honestly, how often do you get to experience something like this? A whole mall to ourselves? It's like a movie scene." After several failed attempts to reach security or mall management, they realized they might be in for a longer stay than anticipated. The cell service was spotty at best, likely affected by whatever had caused the blackout. Messages weren't going through, and calls were dropping. It seemed the universe had conspired to isolate them completely. "Let's see if we can get out through the main mall," Jamie suggested, his adventurous spirit taking over. "Maybe other exits are still open." With cautious steps, They made their way to the bookstore's entrance. The security shutter had indeed come down, but there was a small gap at the bottom, just enough for them to slide under if they tried. With some effort and awkward maneuvering, they managed to squeeze beneath the metal barrier, finding themselves in the darkened corridor of the mall. The scene that greeted them was eerie yet fascinating. The vast space, usually filled with light and noise, was now a landscape of shadows. Emergency lights provided minimal illumination, casting long shadows that transformed familiar storefronts into mysterious silhouettes. Their footsteps echoed in the emptiness, creating an intimate soundtrack to their unexpected adventure. "This is surreal," Alex whispered, as if speaking too loudly might disturb the strange peace that had settled over the place. "I've worked here for 2 years, but I've never seen it like this." Jamie nodded, his eyes wide with wonder. "It's like we've stepped into another dimension. The mall after dark, the secret life of retail spaces." They began to explore, their phone flashlights creating dancing beams that revealed the mall in a new light. The food court, normally bustling with activity, sat in silent anticipation of the next day's crowds. The central fountain, now still without power to its pumps, reflected their lights like a dark mirror. "I'm guessing all the main exits have the same security shutters," Jamie observed as they discovered that, indeed, every exit they found was sealed tight. "Looks like we're here until morning, or until someone realizes we're missing." Alex felt a flutter of panic at the thought. "My roommate won't even notice I'm not home. He's away for the weekend." He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit. "What about you? Will someone be looking for you?" Jamie shook his head. "I live alone, and I don't have plans until tomorrow afternoon." He turned to Alex with a grin that was visible even in the dim light. "Looks like it's just us." As they continued their exploration, the initial awkwardness between them began to dissolve. There's something about shared unusual experiences that accelerates intimacy, breaking down the normal barriers that keep strangers at arm's length. They found themselves sharing stories they might not have told each other under normal circumstances. "I've always wanted to do this," Jamie admitted as they sat on the edge of the silent fountain, their phones propped up to create ambient lighting. Not get trapped, specifically, but experience something outside the ordinary routine. Life can become so predictable, you know? Alex nodded, surprising himself with his candor. "That's partly why I paint. It's the one place where I feel like I can break free from expectations and just exist differently." He hesitated before adding, "I haven't told many people about my art. It feels too personal somehow. I'd love to see your work sometime," Jamie said, his voice genuine. "What kind of things do you paint?" And just like that, Alex found himself describing his art. Abstract landscapes that blended reality with emotion, canvases that expressed what he often couldn't say with words. Jamie listened intently, asking questions that showed he was truly interested, not just being polite. As the hours passed, they ventured further into the mall's recesses. They discovered an employee break room that had been left unlocked, which provided them with vending machine snacks and bottled water. They found comfortable chairs in a furniture store display and borrowed blankets from a home goods shop to create a makeshift picnic area in the central atrium. "Do you think we'll get in trouble for this?" Alex asked as they arranged their impromptu camp. Jamie laughed. "For what? Surviving? We're not vandalizing anything. Besides, this is technically an emergency situation." He winked. "We're just making the best of it." The conversation flowed from topic to topic, their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Alex learned that Jamie, despite his confident exterior, struggled with the expectation that he should have his life figured out by now. Jamie discovered that Alex used his quiet nature as a shield, afraid that being truly seen might lead to rejection. "I came out to my parents when I was 19, Alex shared, his voice soft in the darkness. "My dad didn't speak to me for 6 months afterward. We're okay now, but there's still this distance. Like he's waiting for me to change my mind or something." Jamie's expression softened. "That must have been incredibly difficult. My experience was different. My mom actually guessed before I told her. She said she'd known since I was 12 and was just waiting for me to figure it out." He paused. "But my older brother had a hard time with it. He was worried about what his friends would think, as if my identity somehow reflected on him." These shared vulnerabilities created a bridge between them, each revelation bringing them closer. As the night deepened, so did their connection. They played impromptu games, hide and seek among the store displays, making up stories about the mannequins posed in frozen tableaus, creating shadow puppets with their phone lights against the walls. During a particularly competitive round of Guess the Store from its smell alone, Jamie was winning, having correctly identified the distinctive scent of the leather goods shop. They found themselves standing close together in a darkened corridor. Alex was suddenly aware of Jamie's proximity, the warmth radiating from him in the cool air of the mall. "You know," Jamie said, his voice lower than before. "As far as being trapped goes, I got pretty lucky with my companion." Alex felt his heart rate quicken. "Is that so?" "Definitely. Smart, artistic, surprisingly funny once you start talking." Jamie took a small step closer. "And not bad to look at, either." The air between them seemed charged with possibility. Alex had always been cautious, hesitant to take risks, especially with his heart. But something about this night, the unusual circumstances, the hours of conversation, the feeling that they were in a world apart from reality, gave him courage he didn't know he possessed. "I was thinking the same thing about you," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. What happened next felt both surprising and inevitable. Jamie leaned in, his hand gently touching Alex's cheek, and kissed him. It was tentative at first, a question rather than a statement. But when Alex responded, the kiss deepened, becoming a conversation all its own. In the darkness of the abandoned mall, surrounded by silent shops and still escalators, they found a moment of perfect connection. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Jamie rested his forehead against Alex's. "I've been wanting to do that since you recommended that poetry book with such passion." Alex laughed softly. "That was in the first 10 minutes we met. What can I say? I'm a good judge of character." The kiss changed something between them, removing the last barriers of hesitation. As they continued their exploration of the mall, they held hands, stole more kisses in the shadows, and shared increasingly personal stories. Alex told Jamie about his dream of having his own art exhibition someday. Jamie confessed his fear that his environmental research wouldn't make the difference he hoped for in the world. Around 3 in the morning, they were startled by a noise, a distant clanging that echoed through the empty corridors. They froze, suddenly reminded that they weren't supposed to be there. "What was that?" Alex whispered, gripping Jamie's hand tighter. "Probably just the building settling," Jamie reassured him, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. "Or maybe security doing a check?" The thought that they might be discovered added a new layer of tension to their adventure. They moved more cautiously now, keeping their voices low and their phone lights dimmed. The possibility of being found trespassing, even accidentally, brought reality crashing back into their bubble. "What if we get arrested?" Alex worried as they huddled behind a large planter, listening for more sounds. Jamie squeezed his hand. "We won't. Worst case, we explain what happened. It's not like we broke in, we got locked in by accident." But the fear had triggered something deeper in Alex. "This is crazy, isn't it? This whole night. Us. We barely know each other." Jamie turned to face him, his expression serious even in the dim light. "Do you really believe that? After everything we've shared tonight, do you feel like we're strangers?" Alex hesitated. The truth was, he felt like he knew Jamie better than people he'd been acquainted with for years. There was an authenticity to their connection that couldn't be denied. But that very intensity scared him. What happened when the lights came back on and reality returned? Would this night seem like nothing more than a strange dream? "I'm scared," Alex admitted, his voice small. "Not of getting caught, but of tomorrow. When this is over and we go back to our normal lives. What happens then?" Jamie was quiet for a moment, considering. "I can't predict the future, Alex. I don't know what happens tomorrow or the next day. But I know that what I'm feeling right now is real. It's not just the situation or the adventure or the adrenaline. It's you." His sincerity was palpable, and Alex found himself believing him. Maybe it was foolish, maybe it was naive, but in that moment, he chose hope over fear. "Okay," he said simply. "Let's see what happens when the lights come back on." The noise they'd heard didn't return, and gradually they resumed their exploration, though with more caution than before. They discovered a rooftop garden that was accessible through an unlocked maintenance door, a secret oasis above the mall that few visitors ever saw. Under a sky full of stars, visible now without the city's usual light pollution, they lay side by side on a bench, talking about constellations and possibilities. "I used to think my life was mapped out," Jamie said, his fingers intertwined with Alex's. College, graduate school, career, the whole conventional path. But lately, I've been questioning everything. Wondering if I'm living the life I want or the life that was expected of me. Alex nodded, understanding completely. I struggle with that too. My parents wanted me to pursue a practical career. Art was supposed to be a hobby, not a passion. Sometimes I wonder if I'm brave enough to really go after what I want. What would that look like? If you were brave enough? Jamie asked, turning his head to look at Alex's profile against the night sky. Alex considered the question. I'd quit my part-time jobs and focus entirely on my art for a year. Give myself a real chance to succeed or fail on my own terms. I'd submit my work to galleries, apply for artist residencies, maybe even teach workshops. He sighed. But that requires a kind of confidence I'm not sure I have. Jamie propped himself up on one elbow. I think you have more courage than you give yourself credit for. The way you talk about your art, the passion in your voice, that's not someone who's afraid. That's someone who knows exactly what they want, but is waiting for permission to go after it. And who am I waiting for permission from? Yourself, probably, Jamie said gently. Most of our limitations are self-imposed, don't you think? The conversation shifted to dreams and fears, to the things that held them back and the possibilities that pulled them forward. As the night deepened toward dawn, they shared more kisses under the stars, each one feeling less like a surprise and more like coming home. Around 5 in the morning, as the sky began to lighten at the edges, they made their way back down to the main level of the mall. They were tired now, but it was a pleasant exhaustion, the kind that comes from hours of meaningful connection rather than mundane fatigue. They settled on a comfortable couch in a furniture display, Alex's head resting on Jamie's shoulder, their hands still intertwined. Despite their intention to stay awake, the emotional and physical journey of the night caught up with them, and they drifted into sleep, wrapped in borrowed blankets and newfound affection. The sound of machinery whirring to life woke them with a start. Sunlight was streaming through the skylights, and the mall's systems were powering back up. Lights flickered on, fountains began to flow, and in the distance, they could hear the security shutters rising. Alex sat up quickly, disoriented. What time is it? Jamie checked his phone. Just after 7. The power's back on. They looked at each other, suddenly aware that their bubble was about to burst. The mall would be opening to employees soon, and their night of privacy was coming to an end. We should probably get out of here before security finds us, Alex said, though he made no move to stand. Jamie nodded, but he too remained seated. Alex, about last night, about everything we shared. Alex felt a flutter of anxiety. Was this where Jamie would say it was fun, but not to expect anything more? That it was a one-time adventure born of unusual circumstances? But Jamie surprised him. I meant every word I said, every moment we shared. And I'd really like to see you again, in the daylight, in the real world, on purpose rather than by accident. Relief and joy washed over Alex. I'd like that too. Very much. They gathered their makeshift camp, returning borrowed items to their proper places and disposing of their snack wrappers. As they made their way toward the now open exits, they held hands, no longer concerned about being seen. Near the main entrance, they encountered a confused security guard doing his morning rounds. They explained their situation, the power outage, the shutters closing, being trapped inside. The guard, more amused than angry, took their information and escorted them out, warning them half-heartedly about finding a better place for a date next time. Standing in the morning sunlight outside the mall, they both blinked, adjusting to the brightness and the reality that their adventure had come to an end. But unlike the night before, there was no fear in Alex's heart now, only anticipation. So, Jamie said, his smile as warm as the morning sun, can I take you to breakfast? I know a great place not far from here. Alex nodded, returning the smile. I'd like that. And maybe afterward, if you're interested, I could show you some of my paintings. Jamie's face lit up. I was hoping you'd offer. I've been curious about them all night. As they walked away from the mall, hands still linked, Alex reflected on how much had changed in just one night. He had entered the mall as one person and was leaving as another, someone a little braver, a little more open to possibilities, a little more willing to take chances. The blackout had hit the mall and changed everything. A security shutter had dropped behind them while they were still inside, trapping them in an unexpected adventure. But what had begun as a frightening incident had transformed into something beautiful, a connection neither of them had been looking for, but both had somehow needed. Later, Alex would paint this night, not literally, but in abstract swirls of darkness and light, of shadows and illumination, of fear transformed into hope. And Jamie would stand beside him at the gallery opening 6 months later, proudly telling anyone who asked that their love story began during a blackout, when the world went dark and they found each other anyway. Sometimes, Alex thought, the most extraordinary journeys begin with an unexpected detour. And sometimes, being trapped is actually the first step toward being free. Total _char_count, 17,873.